Absolute Power, DC Comics 2024 Summer Event. Is it worth checking out? We're going to dive into issue 1 and take a look. So be mindful, there will be spoilers. We're also going to be focusing exclusively on the first issue, taking it from the vantage point of, could you just hop in here and start with this issue? I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and just what is Absolute Power? The main books in this event are being helmed by Mark Waid and Dan Mora, a creative team that has been much beloved over on Superman/Batman World's Finest, which began in 2022. They've now had to change up some of the art duties because this is happening. The main series of Absolute Power will consist of 4 issues. But as this is an event, the standard practice has for years, time of recording, been to have many a tie-in. And then some of the main books are also tying in as well. In terms of where this is situated plot-wise, this event follows the House of Brainiac and Failsafe arcs in Superman and Batman respectively. It's also pulling in some elements from Wonder Woman, but not as dramatically. In terms of Batman and Superman, you have 2 visually distinct villains coming in, namely Failsafe and Brainiac Queen. Sorry, Sarge Steel, you're just not as cool looking, although a bit more cool looking in Mora's art style. This event had a countdown and some tie-ins and a prelude, so it's been building up for a little bit. There was Suicide Squad Dream Team, Green Arrow issues 12 and 13, which saw Ollie recruited, and we'll get to that, and then Flash 10. Prelude issues consisted of Absolute Power Special Edition, which was given out for free on Free Comic Book Day, and Ground Zero, which released a week prior to issue 1 dropping, the release date for issue 1 being July 3rd, 2024. So the question or concern for many may be, do you need to have read all of that to know what's going on? Do you need to backtrack? Will this be impenetrable without it? The answer is a firm no. Of any, Ground Zero is the most immediately pertinent, but you can just jump into this. There's going to be some minor details you may not know, like why is Lois editor-in-chief of the planet, or depending upon how long you've been out, who is fail-safe. But in terms of the bigger things they're going to explain inside the text, sometimes through exposition and oftentimes more organically. Not that exposition can't be organic, but when people think of exposition, they tend to think of the type that stops and tells you what's happening. Exposition news type things. This book functions well as an issue that may make you seek out other books to see just what is going on. Largely that's because a lot of it looks so cool. Although, as tends to be the case with comics from the 2020s, it could stand to have a few more editor's notes. I feel like they didn't want to block off any of Mora's art if they could avoid it, which I understand because it's gorgeous. Everyone and everything looks great. It's a hot apocalypse. Since the word countdown came up, you may have another question. For those familiar with DC lore and its history with crises, is this another crisis? It does seem to be a bit of a reset of some kind, and there are some promises of a big new universe coming post this event, both inside the main line and outside it. We'll see if it's a hardcore crisis, not even an Earth type crisis, or a softer, dark crisis type thing. The lead up to all of this has been smooth and feels more planned than certain past events, like the aforementioned Dark Crisis. And the way the main books that would be tying in got there feels a bit more organic, less like a sledgehammer to stories in progress. So with all of that said, just what is Absolute Power about? Like the phrase implies, a lot of this has to do with power, who has it and who's seeking it. Superheroes and the power they wield, both literally and figuratively. Amanda Waller is the lead villain in terms of instigating and orchestrating the events, having decided to create a scenario that will allow her to deploy her own forces to eliminate the heroes of the world. This is a multi-pronged attack, and while in the lead up, thanks to some of the promo pages and discussions and interviews that were given, the focus was much more on the fact that the heroes were going to lose their powers, and there were fears as to whether or not that was going to be derivative or if we're going to enter Bat-God territory. Post this story, more attention will likely go to the concerns being worked through surrounding AI and misinformation, or in this case, disinformation. Not that a fear of the spread of disinformation is a new thing, in fact, it can be a bit evergreen, but working through it through AI is a bit of a newer approach because it's a bit more of a current concern. Although fear of AI has cropped up many times, it's a lot more present at the moment because of how much AI, or things that are called AI, even though that's a bit of a misnomer sometimes, are creeping into day-to-day life. The way Waller is able to sway public opinion in this story is by auto-generating a lot of fake footage of superheroes attacking various areas. It is an interesting concept that does tap into a lot of, as mentioned, current concerns and things that are happening. It's getting easier and easier to fake footage. The rise of AI and the rise of machine-generated content, coupled with a concern that the masses or general public won't be able to see it, and the downfall of media literacy, and less extreme versions of the dead internet theory, it combines into something that many will find quite relevant time of recording. The story plays into many fears, some conspiratorial, as Waller hijacks the internet. Conspiracies are a fascinating well to go down. For every conspiracy that turns out to be true, there's the you need to throw a car battery into the ocean theory. This story is interesting as it does take itself quite seriously, but then it brushes up against some of the more outlandish moments at times, but that can be pretty amusing.
But she's not playing chess. She's rolling tanks.
While if you get down to some details, there may be some questions such as, but if there was no actual damage, wouldn't other people be trying to refute this with their own footage and the like? It wouldn't just be a seamless takeover. There'd be some pushback, or one would hope. That's why the counter to this is that it's happening so fast. Entire internet, all news sources hacked, Brainiac Queen. You need her RAM and power CPU outage tech, the tech. Despite the details, the core idea and concepts ring true, particularly surrounding how quickly false information can spread and how ingrained it can become in people's minds that it's true, especially if it's something they're already primed to believe. There's also a bit of the focus on the role media agencies play in spreading this information. Lucille, I'm busy. Miss Lane, we're getting left behind. These stories are running on every news site in the country except ours. Because none of it's yet confirmed. Are you new here? You know how the media panics about not being last with a story. They report first, then verify. The planet does not and will not run unverified and speculative content. Is that understood? Yes, ma'am. Just the fact that they call it content is very accurate to time recording. Everything's called content. Now, all of this fear-mongering, coupled with what appears to be proof, quickly turns much of the public against superheroes, and they turn violent, attacking the ones they can. Poor Animal Man. He appears so rarely and gets beaten so hard in this. It's a scene that's meant to tug on your emotions, and it works. That mob mentality and how quickly people can turn. It's been true throughout all of history and continues to be true. Now, this story spends a decent amount of issue 1 situating the villains' viewpoints. So even if one doesn't agree with them, they're presented in a way that's meant to make them understandable, and they're also just on the table. So you're gonna have a couple of vantage points. So the entire story and the characters feel a bit more fleshed out because of this. Chiefly, we're gonna see Amanda Waller and her second in command, Sarge Steele. I keep wanting to say Sergeant, it's Sarge. I also want to say Sarge, I don't know. His name is a struggle for me.
This war, Amanda's war, has been brewing for years, then erupting over just a few weeks. The conflict with Wonder Woman and the Amazons, the Titans seizing military power in the name of heroism, fighting a worldwide crisis they were responsible for.
So there's Sarge. Now we also have Amanda. Calling it disinformation isn't really fair. I've said it for years. Superheroes are anything but. They create more trouble than they avert. They have absolute power. They said the title. And they answer to no one. They adhere to a child's idea of morality. And like all children, they occasionally have tantrums. Tantrums that could turn this world to ash. I call that information. We're simply reminding people of that fact. You have moments like this, and then you also have moments that I can't help chuckle at, like Sarge telling her you can't hijack the internet. He doesn't even say hijack, he says hack. They don't have the authority to hack the internet. This book has a clear point of view, but it takes the time to try and at least position alternate ones, which is more than many works. The story opens with what were the teaser pages, the official ones, of Superman getting shot, and that does serve as a solid hook, but the story quickly moves away to the escalating confusion and paranoia as the fake footage of heroes attacking civilians circulates, and the heroes are caught off guard, and so they start to congregate, feeling that there's safety in numbers, and that also then they'll be close together so that they can liaise. There is a strong sense of rising urgency in this issue, and the events move at a speed that matches the story's internal logic. As mentioned by Steele, these events are meant to have been viewed through the lens of they've been building up for a while across the various events. But again, you may not have been reading those. There's gonna be some suspension of disbelief. There always is when you have these big everybody's being taken out at the same time kind of events. Sometimes there's a bit of a wait, all of them, everybody, that pushback that can happen. So there's a part of you have to go with it with these types of stories. There's also the question of who is allied with Waller and why. Now when it comes to Dreamer, that was handled in the prelude, and they don't really touch upon it here. They just show that Dreamer is there. Dreamer's alliance, or lack thereof, was explored in other work. That one will probably cause less consternation than the other hero who is more prominently featured, which is Green Arrow, Oliver Queen.
Where are you?
On the right side of history, pal. I'm sorry, I really am. But I've been warning all you super folks for a long time that us humans don't appreciate being looked down on, and you wouldn't listen to me. Sure, you're great at capping volcanoes, but fixing society's real problems? Because melting via volcano is a fake problem. Actually empowering the powerless, affecting actual change? You get an F for effort.
Arrow, you're talking nonsense. You're one of us.
Not anymore.
The drama, the melodrama.
Now for some this may seem odd or out of left field as it were, but depending upon how familiar one is with Ollie's overall history, the trajectory of it, this makes a lot of sense, especially if you're coming at it starting largely with the 70s and the hard traveling heroes era and then moving forward. Just based on some of the views that Ollie has and has been very vocal about, this is not that strange of a viewpoint for him to have. What's more strange is that it could lead to such a firm alliance with Waller and that he'd be willing to hurt his friends like that. But in terms of that being his subject positioning, it tracks. So for those familiar with a wide breadth of Ollie history, this might land better and be less of a shock. But again, the goal of this is that it's also meant to be a bit shocking. Like, look, gasp, how could he? It's meant to feel like a betrayal. Are you betrayed? You're fed up with this world? The point is, mileage is gonna vary. It does definitely provide some tension. Ollie's saying right side of history tracks so hard. Traveling heroes. Where's Hal so we can call him a Nazi? This is the nail for Ollie all over again. This does also set him up for a big reveal or turnaround, as his reasons for doing this extend a bit beyond the monologue that's given here. This would have been a great place for an editor's note. Nothing affects actual change and empowers the people like deceiving the masses to force them to do what you want. That was sarcasm. Don't hack the internet. One of the big selling points for this book is the art. A lot of things just look cool, and the action sequences go quite hard. Even the talking scenes have atmosphere, and the paneling is dynamic. Nothing feels static or staid. The book moves at a steady clip, and it's easy to get swept up in the excitement as a result. And perhaps, as mentioned, not think as much about some of the more logistical questions. Look at how shiny Wonder Woman's breastplate is. You can see Waller's face in it. With the public suitably panicked, Waller is able to implement her defense response, the countermeasures, which are a bunch of amazos, dubbed Task Force 7. In terms of how this event feels, if you're reading it, it does feel big, especially because they're having everything tie in a bit more of an organic manner. It's certainly doing a bit more than just heroes lose their powers, because of all the other concerns it's working through and the players on the board. The Amazos operating on a hive mind facilitated by failsafe, the potential for corruption from the Brainiac Quinn. There's, in my opinion, a very exciting teaser with John Kent at the tail end of the issue, a bit of a post-credit thing almost, which if they go where I think they're going, could be a very neat moment for him. I was already low-key interested in his one-shot. No, I'm not. I wouldn't say high-key. Mid-key. This event certainly isn't a clone of the Act of God, which was an Elseworld storyline wherein the superheroes lost their powers and they had to contend with that, and what it turned out was that most of them were jerks. Absolute Power is most certainly selling the idea that there are stakes and that one should buy into them. The question is, are people going to? There are things to get excited about here, but of course, as always, there are things to dislike as well. While so far it appears this main story will be pretty tight, there are going to be a lot of tie-ins. And inevitably, some of the details will be sorted out there. So sometimes these events can feel condensed in the main book as a result. Some may find the way the concerns about disinformation and the working of AI will date the work, or they may be concerned that it will. Or they may just find them heavy-handed. This work certainly isn't attempting subtlety in that regard. Everything about it is big and bombastic. It will be interesting to see how this reads based upon how the discussions and debates and regulation and just evolution of AI pans out. Will it feel prophetic and ahead of its time, or will it feel dated and silly? We shall see. That's a time will tell kind of question. While the weight the story is assigning itself will work for some and add to the idea that it is a big deal, how seriously it is taking itself could have the opposite effect on those who find the story trite or preachy. Although for others, it can just be nice to see a story that is taking itself seriously and treating itself like it has some weight while not being afraid to go full comic book with it. Just the phrase hack the internet makes me smile. Amanda, we can't hack the internet. Didn't you know it's a series of tubes? Some aren't vibing with Waller as the big bad. They're done. They've hit the wall. Waller brokered a deal with the United Planets. No one's leaving Earth. No space cavalry's coming to the rescue. We've barricaded the multiverse. We've sealed away the time stream and the microverse. Others don't mind that she's being foregrounded so much. Some like this and feel it's on brand. This is Waller's time. Time for her to get down. The foregrounding of her does seem to have to do with synergy, gunverse, all of those things. Synergy. For me, this feels like a fun and exciting read. While not necessarily fresh, it's putting some unique spins on its premise. To me, it seems like it's going to be a good time, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it pans out and what comes after. Hopefully the aftermath is not a hot mess. But those are just my thoughts, and I want to hear yours. Are you excited for this event? Are you on board? Are you tired? No more events? You don't want it? What do you think? Tell me your thoughts. I want to hear them. Put them down below. And while you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.